back to DM-Nastics. I'm one of your hosts, DM Neil, aka Jote Moniac, and I am not alone, because with me is none other than...
That's right, DM Keel, otherwise known as Mr. Keel, or otherwise known as Matt Keel, from the Detentions and Dragons podcast.
And after seeing your email address and realizing that your middle initial is probably also M, there's nothing you can convince me other than it is clearly... Matthew Keel.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to hear a debate about
My
it.
mom was a maniac, but I was in extremely long labor that ended in a C-section, so if she wants to call me Matthew Keel, it is her right. Thanks, Mom.
So today, we are already talked off air. This is a super funny conversation because it's all, hey, how's the weather? That's it. Welcome. Wait, what did I actually title this?
It's like raindrops keep falling on your dead or something.
Raindrops keep falling, now we're dead. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the weather in your fantasy world because I feel like it is understated more than it should be. And I only say that because there are things in the game that are mechanically dependent on weather. So saying what the weather is like is twofold. I mean, immersion for your players, immersion for you is, I guess that counts as one. And if that counts as two, threefold, because it could also layer into what a person can do. I have a druid. They always cast lightning spells. They always want to be outside, and they always want there to be a storm.
Neil, and I know that from my life personally, the number one conversation that I have with my parents is, how's the weather? Do you know what the temperature is? Hey, is it raining up there? Is it snowing up there? How's the temperature? It's cool down there. What's the humidity like? Weather is clearly important to people. So why not integrate more weather into your fantasy Dungeons and Dragons game or TTRPG than by just being conscious and thoughtful about it?
Yeah. And it could be the thing that warrants more investigation. Is the weather different than it's supposed to be? Do the players over here, people complaining about the weather? Oh, it's never been this hot this time of year. Or, wow, look at all this rain. We never get rain at all. So why do we have any? And so you could lead them. I mean, you could lead them astray, but that's not really what I want.
No. But I think, for example, like one aspect of D&D that sort of gets ignored is that pillar of exploration. And we always tend to focus on the trees, the mountains, maybe the river. But like the thing that kills people isn't the mountain. It's the exposure. It is the weather that is like bringing down adventurers. So we are here. We are planting our flag in the earth, and we are declaring weather to be the most important part of your Dungeons and Dragons game. So we are going to talk about it today. Where do we start? I'm a guest here. What do we do?
Well, perfect. If you check the show notes, there is going to be a link to the map of the world of Day Bay, the forum-created collective world that is basically the podcast world. It's where both of my home tables are set, and as an easy touch point, I posted that map. That way you can say, bam, here is a named place that I can visualize what would the weather be like in this specific location.
Sure. I saw this wonderful map. It looks fantastic. This isn't some scrub map. I think we've probably talked about this before, or you have. Devin Rue. That's a pretty good map maker. Just putting it out there.
Yeah. Someone who has now done work for official Wizard, who has now done work for Official Wizards products. And I think I will have mentioned this. I will mention this next episode as well, is that this was the first one she ever did digitally. So she had taken a lot of time and care to like really see what she could do. And the original file for this is 75 megabytes just for the single image. So
amazing.
The ability to zoom at an unreasonable...
Oh my gosh, you can zoom. You can zoom a lot.
Yeah.
I'm loving
Here you go.
this.
So this is a leather etched version of part of the world that I have now in my hand.
Oh, that is wonderful. Where does one purchase something like this?
Because I didn't do for multiple reasons. I did not do I didn't purchase basically the exclusive rights to it because I would prefer it be available to anybody. Like that's the essence of the world itself. Mm-hmm. So if you go to our website, you can do that. I have a like full print, like front and back shirt of it, which seems really cool until you put it on. It doesn't feel as cool when you're wearing it. Conceptually, though, felt like a great idea.
When do we get the full back tattoo?
Oh, I'll just take the shirt in and just be like, can you just screen press this onto my body?
Yeah, just not even the little needle thing, the needle gun. No, just burn it into my flesh.
But yeah, so you can check. Well, you know what? I'll have a link in the show notes. There's a whole section for this map.
Very cool.
So who from the forums and or Discord did you want to highlight in terms of the information that they have provided?
Okay, Neil. So I want to highlight, I think I'm pronouncing this name correctly. This is Silver Dragon Patreon member Oodles or 00 Dills. And yes. I mean, I think this is super wonderful. Here's the thing. I recently, over the summer, I went to the ocean. This sounds very generic. It was Sweden. I'm from Minnesota. We have Lake Superior, kind of ocean-like, but not the same. So to wake up and like be in an area where you can see the ocean and you can feel that ocean wind, sometimes smell rotting seaweed, which is not my favorite thing. This post reminded me of that experience, and I like how we could integrate a little fantasy twist and intrigue into the setting. So, should I read it?
Yep.
Stepping out of the fisherman's hut along Whiskey Bay after a long night of drink, hearty fish stew, and tales of the area, the party heads out onto the beach and confronts the calm, still morning surf. The cool, brine air slowly drifts in of the waves washing ashore, but the comforting cadence of the waves come in and out all night has changed. They are faster and larger now and noticeably growing as the minutes pass. The horizon is clear and calm as it ever was, but even the gulls are no longer stirring.
Time to leave.
How about a little creepiness there? I think that this really is a call to action. It is, number one, to leave. Number two, maybe it's to evacuate the town. Or maybe number three, maybe it's to find out what is causing this, because maybe it's not just weather, but maybe it is supernatural weather.
Yeah. Or I think of when the tide disappears and it's like, well, that means there's a tsunami, everyone, because there's only so much water and it went and got taller out there and it's going to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is very much an omen of, not just an omen, it is just like a literal factor or variable of like events that are to come. And I think that sometimes in like the D&D world, our players take a little bit too much time. Sometimes they're a little bit relaxed about what are they going to do and how are they going to solve the problem. And I like the idea that you don't necessarily have to give them like a stopwatch timer, but to really emphasize this idea that there's not a lot of time to plan. You got to react to this situation because things are going to get spicy.
Well, and I like the idea that, because my first thought is, if they're at really regular intervals, is it something just in the water walking towards the shore?
Oh, snap. Seriously? That's it? That's cool. That's cool, man. Because I was just thinking waves, but you're right. A thing stepping in the water could be making the waves.
Well, and I think underneath the water, what if it's because the whole storm giant thing, they can live at the depths of the ocean or the highest peaks. What if it's like a storm giant invasion?
And they're all in step.
Uh-huh.
Wow, you better not be in this sleepy fisherman's town because you're going to get wrecked.
So my players were actually, what's funny is they were actually in Whiskey Bay recently. And because it is so far north, I can kind of like, that's kind of where my head is at with the Storm Giants. And I feel like you'll appreciate this. I made a verbal mistake.
Sure.
I feel like I corrected it quickly, but I said, "Oh, you've reached Whiskey Bay, a pirate-themed town." And I said, "No, wait, no, it's a pirate-owned town." Because as soon as I said themed, I was just like, I was like, "No, everyone, please don't."
No, that's pirate-themed town is so much better because
no,
yes, it is. It's so much better because you live in California. Aren't there just towns that are just themed after like Holland and Germany, and you like go to the main street and they all just look like German chalets and things like that? I love the idea that people were so dedicated to the world of pirates. They said, yes, our Chamber of Commerce, we are going to put up pirate statues. We are going to make everything pirate themed. We've never actually seen a pirate before.
So about 20 minutes away, there's a town called Kingsburg that is basically very Dutch themed. And
yes,
there are windmills.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
There are horses nearby, like
Heck,
little horses.
Yes. Yeah. Little horses?
So like horse statues like throughout Main Street that are painted up.
Oh, I'm really dying to get there. This sounds like a blast. Yeah. I'm not even joking. Minnesota did that with Snoopy statues, and it was like the best 2 years of my life.
Okay. That's a solid choice. And also I know that like, so in my town where all the like electrical boxes are, they basically hired street artists to just paint them all over.
That's super fun.
And then there's also one town where it's all of the fire hydrants are repainted.
Again, just finding all sorts of venues for art just to make the mundane just a little bit more exciting.
Yeah. So there's near the courthouse in the town I'm in, there's a giant electrical box. And what they've done is paint giant butterfly wings on it, so then when you stand against it, they're your backdrop and look like they're your butterfly wings.
I mean, hit up the Instagram. You gotta look good for those likes.
Get it for the gram.
For the gram. But so yeah, I just was really compelled by this one. I like, just even from this discussion, all of the possible like things this could be. It could be natural, it could be supernatural, it could be, like you were saying, some type of like monstrous being or entity. There is a level of creativity that I love, and I think it's one of those things where maybe you even just put it out there and the players are like, oh yeah, I think it's like this gigantic bobbing jellyfish that's erupting from the ocean floor, and you're like, that's right, that's exactly what I planned the entire time. How did you know? And then you're like, a little bit of improv, making the collaboration work.
Pseudopod attack with stinging poison.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
So, what about you? What inspired you from the forums or the Discord?
So, I will pick a forum post from none other than Tofu Propaganda. And they say, after leaving the quaint farming village nestled amongst rolling green hills for the first time, the party enters the plains land to the east. The air is dry and dusty, and the heat is creeping up as the sun continues to rise in the sky each day. Scarce shrubs and small trees amongst the tall grass give minimal cover from the sun rays beating down on the heads of the party. So basically, also, if you're doing it from a mechanical perspective, you can basically require more water of the party as they travel through this arid.
Now, when I first read this, I misread it, Neil. And when it said crunchy survival stuff, because again, sometimes we play little loosey-goosey with D&D rules, and sometimes you're really asking your players just exactly how many gold pieces do you have in your pack, because those things have mass and weight. So I read it as crunchy stealth check, and I'm thinking about like you're in these scrublands, and every time you're like taking a step, it's just like you're crackling on tumbleweed and things like that. So,
or if you think of like, when I think of like the salt flats where they do like the land speed records, and the even the ground itself is bent up and basically cracking underneath your step. So that's what I thought of.
Yeah, I think it's pretty neat because here's the thing. We love deserts. Dune, Star Wars, Aladdin. Everyone is about deserts. But what about scrublands? I think scrublands, they're really kind of like the setting for Westerns, but we don't do a lot of Western stuff anymore for reasons. But like, I really like tapping into this, like the environment of like inhospitable, like things still live there, but like it is very, very hard for survival. And humanoids who are so water dependent, like they have a really hard time like surviving in that area. So I do like the survival that you could integrate into your campaign when you're in this scrubland area.
Well, no, I really like the idea of it could be an area that's completely unknown and that the party is the first ones going there. But like you said, just because we can't live there doesn't mean something can't live there. And so like, I really, really like the idea of requiring stealth in an area you wouldn't naturally think of. Because like when you think stealth, you think I'm in a cavern, I'm in a dungeon, it's very dark, where it's like, well, no, you need to be quiet because you're going to attract too much attention out in this open area.
Yeah, and this could be for some type of peoples that inhabit this land, or it could be like stealth checks from like predators that like somehow exist with this environment. So I just love that idea.
I just envisioned actual predators from the movie, and that's why you need to be quiet.
And they're very dusty, and they have a cowboy hat.
Perfect. Well, sir, I think we've done it.
Fantastic, Neil.
That means you and I get to lift the mental weights.
Lifting weights is what I do. Look at me. Lift these weights.
Okay, so my thought is, since you have access to the map, is there a part of the map that is speaking to you? Says, hey, talk about my weather.
Neil, I think that the part that is kind of speaking to me, being in Minnesota, it's autumn. I'm looking at the Scarlet Forest. It is red, and it is by the Mystic Sea.
I have not been to the Scarlet Forest. Tell me a tale.
This is your land, isn't it? Shouldn't you know a little bit more about the Scarlet Forest? Or is this a collaborative world setting?
So it is a collaborative world setting, but one of the things was when Devin originally made the map, I had very few areas that were really defined, but I had the totality of the map done with basic rough areas of these are mountains, these are hills, these are forests. But for the most part, I hadn't really named much of anything. So a lot of the names are from her.
Very cool.
And then have gone undefined. So like one place was called Empress Forest, and I didn't know why until I got there with the party. And basically there was an undead lich empress with a town of undead in there, but basically druids had grew this forest around them to basically force them to stay. So that is why it's called the Empress Forest now.
Whoa.
So
that's pretty cool.
I mean, other than its color, I do not know yet now why it is called the Scarlet Forest. And we will learn a little bit more, right? By whatever you say.
Okay. So the Scarlet Forest, clearly the color of the leaves, a deep, deep, rich blue color. Just kidding. They are going to be scarlet. Now, I think when we're thinking about weather and we're thinking about a forest, is there something that we could do with, for example, like a rainforest? Now, there are multiple types. There's tropical and there's going to be like your non-tropical rainforest. So could we have some sort of maybe daily sort of weather cycle that is taking place in the Scarlet Forest?
Yes, because the notable place directly next to it is called the Mystic Sea.
So maybe there is something about this Mystic Sea that is feeding into the Scarlet Forest. I don't know if it is magic, if it is some sort of like potentially maybe it's like an ore or a mineral is being carried by this current and it's being absorbed by the roots within this forest. Maybe this is what is tinting the actual leaves this scarlet color. But yeah, I want to think about some type of interplay with the atmosphere and weather conditions. So, I mean, is it too kind of cliche to just say that there's some type of rain that happens daily?
No, I mean, because it's still weird, because this is kind of in the middle of the continent. But what if, like, the water cycle that we all learned in school? What if that's just happening on like the pace of a day rather than like seasons? So basically, like, it's just literal rinse and repeat every single day in this area.
Okay, so this idea of like these torrential downpours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is the rain red colored? Does it look like blood, or is it just like normal, like rain color?
I mean, I can't decide.
I mean,
I feel like
blood rain. Hi, welcome to Hot Topic. My name is Emo. So
I like the idea of it, especially if you're in the forest. Like, if you were above the trees, I would say no, not really. But if it's hitting these trees and coming down off of it, I would say yes.
Okay, I am loving that aspect of it, because it's not necessarily the rain that is the red part. It is the minerals that are leaching into the raindrops that fall onto the leaves. And maybe that part of that cycle is like those minerals are getting then sent back down. Oh my God, Neil, I just figured it out. The Mystic Sea isn't mystical because it is mystical. It's mystical because of the runoff that is produced by the Scarlet Forest. So centuries of this quick rain cycle, this extended, this rapid water cycle, all of this mineral diffusing into the groundwater, into the sea, that's what's made the mystical sea mystical. So it is the source of that, I guess, this energy or this power or this mystery of the Mystic Sea.
I like it, because I also like you had mentioned the possibility of it being a mineral or ORE, and the idea that vein of mineral could be the reason that the Scarlet Forest is where it is, because you can also kind of see some runoffs of trees similar to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is like they're not gonna grow like this anywhere else, because this is where that mineral is found.
I love it. So fast rain cycle, there's a mineral. These roots run extremely, extremely deep into the ground. They pull up whatever our MacGuffin is, that is going to then stain these leaves red. And when the rain happens, washes off, what runoff goes into the ocean, makes the actual area, the ocean itself, mystical. Here's the question. How does this affect like a person who's just like traversing this woods? Like, like they just pop in for a day or something. Are there any like profound effects on them? We were talking about like trying to add a little bit more of a survival component, incorporating things like weather and that type of thing like that. What do you think?
Well, I think the two thoughts are exposure and then staining. The idea that like something about the exposure to it has some sort of negative or potentially positive effect. The other that I think is just has to happen is that it stains everything in an extreme way.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think it always has to stain things red. I think it could just stain things weird, because I'm liking the idea that this is like not a good or a bad place, but it's kind of a weird place.
Yeah, especially when you have, I think of like flora is obviously the trees and we're dealing with that, but like, is there other flora that is there? And then obviously the subsequent question is there fauna that is surviving in this?
Well, I'm thinking about how if we're really just working with this idea that the trees are a part of this like resource, the runoff goes into the Mystic Sea, but the runoff can also be absorbed by perhaps plants that wouldn't necessarily be like have roots deep enough to like extract that mineral. So where you might have just like some normal flowers existing in a different area, these flowers that exist within the boundaries of the Scarlet Forest, there's going to be something that is different about them. So I like the idea of unusual effects, and especially has something to do with exposure. So maybe, for example, the party could encounter a hermit, and you could recognize the hermit because their body is stained in a particular color that's really indicative of the Scarlet Forest itself. Or maybe there's some other adverse effect. That was the one that I thought of.
I like it. And by George, I think we've done it. We've done it once again. And if you have found the map of DM-Bay and you want to tell us about something in that world that speaks to you, whether it's weather or anything else, you can always email us at dmnastics@gmail.com. And of course, if you head over to Twitter, you can find us. All of our stuff is now centralized at DMS_block. That's at DMsBlock. I'm at JoteManiac. And I believe you have a Twitter. Is it? Or where would you socially direct people to follow all of the things you're doing?
Okay. Well, as you might know, Detention the Dragons basically has wrapped up its run. We got maybe one more final episode, just a conclusion episode of the whole podcast. That'll be dropping in a month or two. I would say if you're looking to hear from me and what I'm doing, enroll in a high school in northern Minnesota. But you could also go on to iTunes. We have the whole catalog of Detention of the Dragons. Some of the information probably seems a little outdated because 5e has changed a little bit since the first episode of our podcast. But go check that out. We'd love to still hear from you, and we'd love to hear if what we did in the classroom inspired you to extend D&D to like a youth group, your own classroom, maybe your cousins, or maybe even your kid.
And as always, we want to thank the bards over on Bombarded for an intro and outro music, and for everything that they're doing. You can head over to bombardedcast.com. But no need to work out alone, because you should check out this amazing lifting partner.
It's the DM-Nastics gym and you're lifting the thing, but sometimes you need help. It's your lifting partner.
Today's lifting partner, because they were directly involved in the lifting process, is none other than Devin Rue herself. If you're not following her, what are you doing? What's going on?
What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Just reading books and gardening? Get on the internet. It's cool, people.
Yep. Sure enough, if you search Dayeimbe, Dayeimbe on her website, you can still get a print. Bare minimum, you can still get a print that is 3 foot by 30 inches with or without text. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's huge.
That's no joke. I also have, because it was mine, and I was working with her, and I actually have it on cloth at larger than that scale, so it's like in the house. So then, like, when the party's deciding where to go, we can literally get up, go to the next room, and look at the overworld map and start deciding.
Heck yeah.
So definitely go check it out. And then she typically, like, there's merch, there's digital tools, there's a cartography course itself. If like the idea of map making is the piece of this hobby that really speaks to you, this is a person to absolutely look towards as a mentor, a pillar in the community, and all of those other things.
And if you're like me and you love maps, but you are bad at making maps and you don't want to make them, this is a fantastic resource. Work smarter, not harder, people.
I mean, like I said, there's versions with and without text. Like, your entire campaign and world could be $5 away, and it's literally a VTT built map pack.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, heck, you're buying a D&D book for $455 these days. You know, inflation, am I right? So why not go and pay $5 for an awesome map that you can download?
Yeah. In some of it, there's a version of Greyhawk. There's a version of Chult. There's Corvale. Anything you could conceivably want is probably available here. So go, dear listener.
Do it.
But with that, we'll turn out the lights and head out of the gym. But before we go, I want to implore you, the listener, to join the forums, the Discord, Twitter, X, Technically, we're on Blue Sky, but not a lot of people are. It's kind of like shouting into a void. And anywhere else you can find us and take part in these challenges, exercises, and other amazing conversations to be had.
To do that, head over to dungeonmasterblock.freeforums.net and try some DM-Nastics so your players don't ask, do you even lift?